Ms. Sovsun, how's the situation in Kyiv in terms of the inner activity of Ukrainian Parliament?
Well, the parliament is working as a way of representing the people of Ukraine. It's just this representation is functioning in a different way compared to what it used to be before the war. So right now, the parliament does not gather for sessions. We did have two emergency sessions. The first one, 3 hours after the war started, where we declared the state of war. And then a week after that, we did have another session where we passed some legislation regarding the specifics of the legislation and how it is functioning during the martial law. But other than that, MPs are functioning in their role as representatives of the people, but that does mean different things right now. So different MPs are doing different things. Like there is a group of members of parliament who are doing basically what I am doing as well, is talking to the world media, to the to the world leaders through diplomacy. So working on the international arena. Then there are some MPs who are involved in providing humanitarian aid and relief. Then there are some people who are involved in informational warfare. So they're coordinating different information activities and so on and so forth. And then there are a group of MPs who are directly involved in the defense. My best friend in the parliament, Roman Kostenko, he used to be with the special forces before, and he got back to the special forces and he's fighting in the south. So there are MPs who are directly on the front line as well. So this is how the parliament is functioning now. Well, it's completely different from what it used to be 3 weeks ago, but our life altogether is completely different from what it used to be 3 weeks ago.
As you know, the UN Refugee Agency has reported that more than 2.5 million Ukrainians have left the country. Why you didn't leave?
The weeks leading to the war, when we were getting information that the war can be taking place, the first thing I had to take care of is the decision about my son. I have a son with my ex-husband, so we had a discussion and we decided that if the war starts, given that I'm a member of parliament and I cannot be leaving the capital, that would be wrong on my side, because I have to continue my job as serving the people, that my ex-husband would take care of our son and he would move him to the Western Ukraine. So even weeks leading to the war, I knew that as a member of parliament, I cannot leave the people. I have to stay there and we have to fight together against the enemy. So I did not leave the city. Initially, I did move to the Kyiv region after 10 days, though, because I was staying with some friends, because I didn't want to stay in my apartment because it's in a high floor. So going down to the basement every time was just too burdensome, and I wasn't able to do my job. So I was staying with some friends in the city, but then they decided to evacuate. So I moved in with some other friends in the Kyiv region. So that is, but I knew that I cannot just leave. It would be wrong. I can't do this. We have a country to fight for, and the majority of people are still staying, despite this terrible and terrifying number of 2 million. There are over 30 million left in the country. So that is what is important to understand. And furthermore, 140,000 men returned to Ukraine, and those were the men who were living in Europe mainly before. But when the war started, they decided to come back, even though they were staying in European countries in different capacities before, but they decided to go back to Ukraine to fight. That is the level of commitment we all have to fight against this evil that we faced.
Aren't you concerned that Kyiv might fall and they will come after you?
I'm more concerned that they will attack the city, and that is a very real possibility. Frankly speaking, the first few days of the war, it seemed like they will actually enter the city, but then now we are seeing that it's not that easy for them. So we now know for sure they will try, and they're trying to get closer to the city, but they're not very successful, frankly speaking. So yesterday morning, we learned that the Ukrainian army pushed them further from the city in the northeast direction, because they were trying to get to the city from northeast. That didn't work. They are relatively close to the city from northwest and west, But again, they're not proceeding any further compared to where they were a week ago. But we do still see that they're gathering forces to get closer to the city. But also we were not staying still and waiting for them to come, because the city was preparing very, very well. And the city is extremely fortified right now. And in addition to the armed forces of Ukraine, which have been fighting before, there is a very strong and big territorial defense in the city. So there are, thousands of men and women who have ammunition, who are equipped, who are standing on the checkpoints and so on and so forth. So we do realize that they will try to enter the city. But we do hope that the city will fight back. And we did see that they're not successful in fighting on the ground. The only thing they are successful, define successful, but I mean, where they can achieve their goals is those terrifying airstrikes. That is the only area, the only sphere in which they have superiority. Land attacks are not that successful on their side. They did some progress in the first few days, but I think after that, Ukrainian army did reorganize, regroup, and is managing the situation relatively well. Well, what is well in this situation, but it's okay. So I'm not that much concerned about myself, as I am concerned about the lives of many, many other people, and the destruction that the Russians are bringing with them anywhere they appear. Because that what we have seen in the city of Irpin, where they came, is just terrifying. They basically destroyed the whole city, 100,000 people city, close to Kyiv. Mainly young families living there, and they just basically destroyed all of it. I had friends who lived there in Irpin, and it's just terrifying. So that is what I am concerned about so much more than my personal safety as a member of parliament.
U.S. Congress has passed $13.6 billion aid for Ukraine. What more can U.S. do for Ukraine?
Well, we wouldn't need any humanitarian aid if we covered our sky. That is the biggest thing ever, because now with all the aid that is pouring into Ukraine, the West is trying to fight the consequences. But we need to fight the real reason why there are so many. There is so much. There are so many refugees, why there is this humanitarian crisis, and that is because the Russians are bombarding our cities from the air. That is what people are so scared of. That is why people are running away. Because apart from several cities on the south, a little bit on the north, they didn't actually capture any other city. And of course, the city of Mariupol, that is where the real tragedy is ongoing. But people are mostly scared because of those bombardments from air. So actually, if we stop the bombardments from air, if a no-fly zone is established, there wouldn't be such a big refugee crisis, because people will not be afraid to stay in Ukraine. They will not be afraid to live here, and nobody wants to leave their houses, their lives, and all. People are doing that because those airstrikes are just, they're mind-numbing. It's like you go to bed and you don't know if you wake up next morning, and it doesn't depend on which area you live in. Like we could think that like in the Western Ukraine it is safer, but just this morning they hit two cities in the Western Ukraine, in Lutsk and in Ivano-Frankivsk. So nobody is feeling safe anywhere. So the best way right now to support Ukraine is help us establish a no-fly zone. And I've heard so many times that this argument that the West doesn't want to get involved with Russia and so on and so forth. I have to say it's a naive argument, because Russia doesn't need a real reason if it wants to engage with the NATO states. It doesn't. It didn't have a real reason to attack Ukraine. It just made it up. As like 2 hours ago, we have heard that Russia is doing everything possible to engage Belarusian army into the war. And in order to do that, they did, well, what they did was this. The Russian airplane took off from the Belarusian soil, flew over to the Ukrainian territory, and then from the Ukrainian territory came back to Belarus and bombarded Belarusian villages close to the border, claiming that Ukrainians did that. That is what they're capable of doing. So the West needs to realize, and it's a difficult thought to grasp, but it's true. If Russia wants to engage with the West, it will engage, no matter if there is a real reason or not. So we just say this: let's have this fight on our territory, because we are having this fight anyways. And having this fight with the West on our territory will just help us save thousands of lives here in Ukraine. And even if that is not the argument, we are willing to ensure the no-fly zone ourselves, but we just need the jets and the air defense system in order to be able to do that. That is the best way to help solve the refugee crisis, the humanitarian crisis, and all. Otherwise, we shall be just dealing with the consequences, not with the real reason of where the problem is coming from.
Russia claims that there are military biological activities of the United States on Ukrainian soil. As a member of parliament and former Minister of Science in Ukraine, are you aware of any activities of that sort in Ukraine?
No, I can tell you for sure. I believe the whole world realizes that there was no biological laboratories creating biological weapon. Actually, the direct statements, if you read them, are just nonsensical. They're saying about some, I don't remember, some birds that will be used as biological weapon, some insects that will be used as biological weapon. I don't even know how to comment on that. Those are sick people who just, making up whatever as an excuse. But what I am concerned about truly is that this will be used as a pretext to claim that the Ukrainians use the chemical weapon against its own people to involve the West into the war. That is what the Russians are absolutely capable of saying. And that threat is real, and that is what we are all afraid of, frankly speaking, extremely afraid of. We know Russia did have experience of using the chemical weapon. It can do that again. And we really hope that it will not come to that, but we really don't have any reason to believe that Putin can just, think rationally and stop at some point. No good reason to think that this is possible. So no, I can tell you for sure that Ukraine was not involved in that. For the better or for worse, our research is not that strong. Well, I'm telling that as a former minister for education and science. I can tell you with all responsibility. So it just something they are making up. I really don't think we should pay that much attention to what they are saying. We just should realize what they're planning to do and try to prevent that.
Do you think if Ukraine had kept its nuclear weapons back in 90s, your country would have been safer now?
Yes, well, safer to an extent. But that is one of the reasons why so many people in Ukraine, including myself, do feel betrayed right now, because we as a state, and I do have, I'm a political science professor by background, so I can talk for hours about the imperfections of Ukrainian democracy. But I still think that in 1994, that was a responsible thing to do. We said that we are giving up our nuclear weapon potential in exchange for guarantees from the West that in case our security is breached, we shall get help. And now we're getting excuses and explanations of why this can't be done. So apparently that was a miscalculation on our side. That had we still be in possession of a nuclear weapon, the situation would have been completely different for us. And that is why there is this general feeling of betrayal and abandonment by the West here in Ukraine, which is particularly painful because the single reason why Putin is attacking us is because he sees us as the closest representatives of the Western culture and civilization next to him. So we are now dying because of trying to get closer to the West, and the West is saying hey, stay there. We need to think about that twice. That does feel to a very big extent like a betrayal on the side of the West. Yes.
What's your reaction when you hear accusation against your people as being fascist or Nazi?
Well, look at me. I am a representative of the parliament. I wouldn't say a typical one, but that is what the majority of the parliament looks like. Do I look like a Nazi? I'm a feminist. I'm supportive of. I'm proud to be to say that I was one of the. I was called the most supportive MP of the LGBTQ issues. Those are still contested issues in Ukraine, but we are nowhere near being called a Nazi state. We do have our issues like any other country does. Different countries do have different radical groups, but calling us Nazis, well, our president is a Jew, ethnically. Well, so that is just I don't know. I don't even know what other arguments you need there. So I do hear those claims from Russian propagandists. Again, completely ridiculous. I do have my issues with the president. I'm representing the opposition party, but just for the sake of it, like seriously, he's a Jew. How can you call a country run by a Jew a Nazi state? That's just nonsensical.
There were reports that people of color were mistreated in border area.
When evacuation, we did have prior to the war, around, I think, 70, 80,000 international students here in Ukraine. There was a popular destination for the Indian students, for students from China, from many other countries. India was a big one, and many African countries as well. And well, of course, all of them ended up in this hell together with us. Like we were, bombs do not discriminate. They are all falling on our hands indiscriminately. And then people were trying to get away, and the priority was given to families with children. So the issue was not the color of the skin of the, of the students or anything. It was their age. Because when we talked to the border police, and they said like we primarily just let families with small children go through, which I think is making perfect sense, frankly speaking. But when Russia started circulating this nonsense, when the evacuation from the city of Sumy was made possible, just a couple of days ago, Ukraine actually. The first group who were evacuated were the students from Sumy State University, and then families with children. That's just for everyone to understand, like to what extent we are trying to make sure that no claims are real. But I still think that families with children should be evacuated first. I'm sorry, no racism. It's just a pure matter of children cannot help themselves. So that's as easy as that.
How come that the Putin has so much support in Russia for this war?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot. Like, how do I feel about regular Russians? Well, I have to be honest, I hate all of them. Apart from a very small elite, like 1% who are actively fighting against Putin, the absolute majority of Russians actually support this war. And that is the most terrifying thing. Like 71%, according to the recent polling, support the war in Ukraine. Their intellectual laziness, their willingness to fall for these propaganda traps, their unwillingness to engage politically, they have led to creating this monster, which Putin is, and allowed him to do what he is doing to us right now. And then I also heard so many stories from friends of friends who have family in Russia, family members like parents or brothers and sisters, and they're calling from Ukraine to their family members in Russia, and they tell them what Russia is doing here, saying that you are bombarding our cities, and people over there who are family members say like, oh, you are lying. I have a good friend who's and her mom is. Her mom's dad is living in Russia, and she tried calling him and explaining what Putin is doing here, and he said like, you are lying, Putin is telling the truth. That's terrifying. That is a totalitarian society, which we all should be scared of. So I don't think that we can just say that it's just Putin to blame. It's the whole society that is completely sick, and it will take a century to fix that if they start now. If they kill Putin, they take him down in one way or another, but even after that will still be a sick society. That is it's very scary society. It's back to the Soviet Union in the most harsh years, like the Stalinist years. So I do know, like the data shows that the majority of Russians do support this war against Ukraine. So, well, what can I feel about those people? Well, they deserve the sanctions they're getting, and I don't support the argument that the sanctions shouldn't be hurting regular people. Well, they should, because they're responsible for that as well.
How widespread is the support of Alexander Dugin's thinking among Russians?
think Dugan ideas are influential, but among those people who are reading this kind of stuff. So I think the majority of Russians are like second-hand users of Dugan's ideas. Well, for clear reasons, like his texts are unreadable to the majority of people, and so on. So I think that ideology that Dugan and others have created, it's there, and it's largely part of the Russian ideology overall right now. But of course, also through secondary sources. But yeah, it's largely been part of the inspiration, if you call it, for the Russian elites, of course.
Some countries in the UN General Assembly didn't vote to condemn Russia's invasion of Ukraine. What do you have to say to the Iranian government who have sided with Putin in this war?
I don't really know what to say, because I do think that this situation is so black and white that taking sides in here shouldn't be that difficult of an issue. And regardless the geopolitical context or anything, we were like 3 weeks ago, we were an independent state. I was having a life that I was building. I had, a place where I was living with my son. I had and now I don't have anything of that. I don't know where I will be able to go back home. And that is not because we did anything wrong, like nothing. We did nothing to provoke that attack, and we were attacked. And I think that every single country should condemn that, because keeping quiet on this issue is opening up this huge possibilities for the same things happening to anyone else. Like right now, if you don't condemn this, if we don't keep this world order that we did have before, the respect for the sovereignty of the country, it will be, they will continue to break it any way possible. I am absolutely sure that Putin did this now in 2022, because in 2014, he was not punished enough for what he did to Crimea and what he did for starting the war in Donbass. And every country should understand that it's not just a threat to Ukraine, it's the threat to the world order that it was functioning to an extent, more or less well. And not condemning what Putin doing right now is just opening up so many possibilities for other countries to being attacked and not getting enough protection. That's why I believe the whole world should be standing with us right now. And I'm saying that not just because I'm Ukrainian, but also simply because I'm, again, teaching political science. From that perspective, that is just the right thing to do, because breaking the whole world order is just going to lead to the whole world of mess and chaos.
Have you had any Iranian students?
I have to be honest, not. So no, I don't really teach international students, so I wouldn't be in touch with them. I hope they are safe. I hope they managed to get away, but I don't really know. I believe many of them are studying in Kharkiv. So because that's a big student center and many students will go in there. Yeah, so I was not in touch with any of them, sorry, but I hope they are safe. But I cannot be absolutely sure, because evacuation from Kharkiv has been extremely difficult the first week of war. Now it's more or less possible. I hope they're safe, and I hope they understand that Ukraine is still welcoming them after this is over, after the victory. It's not our fault that they ended up in this situation together with us.
Do you have any message for the world?
I want the world to understand, and it's very difficult and scary to understand, but the sooner the world understands it, the better it will be, is that Putin is the Hitler of our time. And pretending that we can just allow this new Hitler destroy one Eastern European country and that will not have an effect on anyone else, well, we should have learned this lesson by now. It's not going to work. We should stop him now, not for the sake of Ukraine only, but not for the sake of saving children's lives here in Ukraine, but just to keep the world as it was before. It was not a perfect world, but it was something that we could build upon. What Putin is trying to create is a mess, chaos, terror, fear. That is not what I want to build a new world upon. So I want the whole world to remember that he's the threat to every single one of us if he's not stopped here in Ukraine.
Thank you, Ms. Ina Sovsun.
Sure. Thank you so much.